special. That's me.
I'm dying.
Yeah, I know that the anticipation was just killing you all. Sure. Let's start by bucket filling. Who's got something great that happened in the last week? Thank you. Okay, Rick, thanks for stepping up. That's great.
Say this morning was nice because we had a situation where Amy couldn't be here and a number of the LC just said, yeah, we'll be responsible for it. There's stuff anyways. A couple of guys did. It's good when it's not like silence.
Right.
You know, like people jumped on it right away. So.
Right. Awesome. Yes, Heather.
I took vacation Monday and Tuesday. It was super nice to have Lydia and Candy here. No, everything's just fun.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
I think we gotta add like a clapper.
Yeah.
There you go. One clap after the comment. We got it. Who else has something they'd like to share?
I dropped my youngest off in Florida to go to school, and while I was away, Chris did a showing for me. Alex hosted an open house for me. Both of those resulted in Chris's was buying a different property than the ones I showed, but it helped really make a lot of her decisions. And the other one, the property sold right away, and so both of them. Thank you very much. Good to have both of you guys here.
Awesome. Let's give Kevin one clap. There we go. Thank you. I'd like to bucket fill everybody who was at Mega Camp, Kevin and Angie and Candy and Amy. Am I missing somebody? Bethany. Yes, Bethany was busy. I had a great time at Mega Camp. It was fun learning about the stuff as usual, and it was just really good to spend time with everybody. So let's give everybody one clap. Anybody else? Sherry.
And Zurich for showing a client of mine a place. I'm not licensed there, and he is, so that was very nice. Jumped on it. All afternoon. Great.
Very cool. One clap. Wendy. Oh, I thought you had raised it. Really? Nothing this
I
week?
know, no, I got somebody under contract, I signed a buyer this week, and I've got another one appointment with an investor tomorrow, so there are things happening. I just couldn't figure out.
Very cool.
All
One
of
clap for the real estate god. Yes.
Well, actually, bucket fill Wendy for coming to our broker open last week. Nice to see some families in the office there and give us our feedback.
Very cool.
Yeah, why not?
Thanks, Wendy. Yes.
One, the Bethany Nelson team for having that gigantic cart that they let everybody use. Oh my goodness, George, that's a cart's name. The back in the corner is a really nice cart, so if you got to haul stuff back and forth up to the office, it was really nice. That's just a nice. I was really saving a lot of time.
Bethany Nelson friend.
And the other one is for Mr. Nagel. Just for putting up with, I'm not difficult, but my clients happen to be, right? But my clients happen to be a little difficult. Yeah, we're working on. These were clients that I met at an open house, right? So, we weren't flocking together at the moment. We are now. So, anyway, we had a deal, a really nice deal that we thought everything was going great, and then my clients canceled, and then they uncanceled the next morning. So, and he just, he's just like, I called him and he's like, they're canceling before I even said anything. Yeah, sorry, dude. And we kind of walked through it, but he had just maintained his composure and very respectful. And sure enough, we just came back together anyway.
Awesome. And that was Scott.
That was Scott.
Awesome.
Nagel.
Perfect. Thank you. Andy.
So I have a bucket fill for Wendy and Maddie too. We did a backpack fundraiser together and and it was really fun to do that together. So thank you for kind of leading me through that. And then Derek, thanks for introducing me to that greatest meat place in Texas.
Which was it?
Ironworks.
Oh,
Ironworks
yeah.
Barbecue, right behind the convention center in Austin. Personal favorite.
Yeah.
The only regret is that I didn't get a picture of everybody's teeth, like.
Oh, I
Russ.
I have one where, so I've been working on a fall event, we're gonna do they do a spring, they have done a heart-shaped pizza giveaway. So I thought, what if we do a football-shaped pizza giveaway for fall, for a client event? And so she's just been a huge resource and encouragement as I've kind of put that together, so we're doing that on September 9th, and I just want to thank Jess for being so open with how they do it, so I could kind of follow their trail of breadcrumbs, so to speak.
Very cool. For Jess. Nice to have the opportunity to rip off and duplicate, right? Absolutely. It saves a lot of effort. All right. The training calendar. Candy, would you like to say anything about the training calendar? The first I've seen of it, so. I'm not.
That's all right.
You guys know what I mean.
Same thing, goes out week to the week and it's attached and you can click on the link and sign up for everything. I usually just click on it at the end of the month and sign up for everything, cause then it's just on there, but. You know.
And the business checkup from the neck up tomorrow is at the Dyna Market Center, right?
Yep.
And it's being led by Kimi and it's kind of a business plan meeting.
Got it.
So that could be a really good one. It's also Zoom.
Yes.
Yep, so that'd be a great one to join in tomorrow at 11.
Excellent. Thank you.
Rick, would you like to tell us about this?
Sherry, you're here. Sherry, tell us about your great new listing. Oh, that's not a new.
No, we're having a wine and cheese affair at Dell Road tomorrow. Should be fun. We got all kinds of fun treats and a good opportunity to network with other luxury agents that are they're coming and
Yeah, it's a great venue. We're trying to re-engage the luxury group essentially. I mean, you don't know how you say this, but anyway, there's a couple of ladies at the Minneapolis office that took over the luxury division for the collective. And so we are working in collaboration with them to try to get more events. So the objective is every 2 to 3 months, there will be a luxury event that you do not have to be in luxury real estate to attend these. Strongly encourage you to attend them if you're interested in ever selling a house over $1 million, because this is where you're talking to other people who are doing the same thing. And we learn a lot. We do have a guest speaker too. Super interesting. The Farrells, the 3 brothers, are the original family that owns Haskell's. And these guys this family was bootleggers like a long time ago. And so they've got
So there's money in the walls.
There is. He's gonna tell cool stories about the history and then talk to us about how they take care of luxury clientele. I mean, we just had a client, we called Haskell's and said we got this wine, this huge wall that needs a bunch of wine on it, and they don't want guests to come over and have no wine. So one of these actual owners just picked out all the wine, just because you also don't want these fancy guests to come over and look at your bottles of wine and be like, wow, you got that all at Costco, right? I mean, they should at least have some decent wine. Box of wine. Your finest box. Yeah, and Boone's Farm. So no, it'll be super cool, you guys. Everything's free. It'll be really nice. We got a lot of it.
That's 5 to 7 tomorrow.
5 to 7 tomorrow, yeah. It's John or Bo or the other one.
And they're hilarious, so if
They're
you need
fun.
like a comedy, they're pretty funny. Yeah.
There you go. With booze. We.
Oh, here he is.
Hey,
Look at that.
Can I ask some clarifying questions? Matt,
Yes.
On the calendar? On the calendar, it said there's a block party today. Is that just, it needs to come off, right?
Yeah, the calendar gets made at the beginning of the month, and I was hoping people would sign up. As of right now, there's no more block parties because no one has signed up to host. So I would love for there to be one, but someone has to sign up to host it.
All right. Call to action. Somebody host the next block party, please.
It's every other week.
Every other week.
Yes.
Only when it's nice out, right? So we only have like.
Yeah, I only had it through the end of September.
Maybe talk about that.
And
So,
you don't have to grill. It can be whatever food you want.
yes. Thank you. So last week, a couple of us were at Mega Camp. Did anybody else watch anything from Mega Camp? Was that possible, Lydia?
I don't think so.
Okay, great.
I think there may be recordings, but nothing.
Okay, great. Well,
There was a follow-up.
Was a Thursday.
okay. And,
We didn't have any of these slides at that time.
okay, great. This is great. Yeah. Pattern redirect. So let's talk about the market update that Gary talked about at Mega Camp. Yeah. First of all, let's start with any observations, comments, nuggets, whatever. Would either of you like to say anything about what you took from Mega Camp?
We went out for lunch that first day, I think with Ironworks, and Candy said, well, what were your takeaways when we were there? One of my takeaways was, I think sorry. One of my takeaways is, this is a Gary thing. He said, there's never a wrong time to buy the right property, right? So especially as realtors, I don't want my words to be, I'm not looking right now, right? The idea is I should always be looking for the right property. So I'm not finding what I'm looking for right now is a better, just keeping my mind going that way. Then he also talked about, and I think we'll see more of these on the slides. The other takeaway was, most people live in their house, 7 to 10 years. We lived, and you've seen appreciation over the 7 to 10 years. Really nice thing. We bought our house in 2004, and we still live in that same house, which is like a $350,000 house. It was 221, now it's 351. If I would have done that shift and bought another house at that point that was 350, 400, if both of them would have grown at the same rates, I would have had my net worth would have increased more significantly than it has right now, right? And that's what I thought was kind of cool too, is to look at the way that owning a property that's appreciating can affect your net worth.
Very interesting. As a follow-up question, so you bought your home in 2004.
Yep.
And were probably significantly upside down by 2007.
Yeah, we watched it go, whoop, like you get all the tax things, it got up to like 340 and then it went down to like 170.
Yeah. And what was it that kept you from doing something and buying that next house?
I think it was comfort, right? Very easy for me not to even think about my mortgage. And so that's kind of kept us there. And then our kids were engaged in school, so that kept us there too. There was no reason really to move, right? But now we're not in that spot and just kind of going, like I told Teresa, maybe we should up the price in which we're looking for something, right? And you can also do that by buying multiple places that even you don't live in and whatever, but somehow we have to accumulate more properties,
Right.
or greater value in the property.
Awesome. Thanks. Angie, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
Yeah, first of all, this is my first time I had ever been at, Meg, and it was phenomenal. I'm so glad that I went. And I took a lot of pieces for my business, like just little pieces to add to my listing presentations, my lead generation, things like that. But I kind of wrote down the 5 top things that meant a lot to me that I wanted to really integrate into my life going forward. And the first thing that really stuck with me was about happiness. Gary said there was, in all of their interviews getting ready for Mega Camp, there wasn't a whole lot of focus on happiness, but they brought a couple of people up to talk, and the one phrase that stuck out to me was be intentional about your happiness first and your life will change dramatically. So just really focusing on like that number one, what's that, the one thing, the book? Yeah, so really focusing on that one thing, have a profound change on your life. So kind of just bringing that back to the forefront. And like Kevin said, it's always a good time to buy the right real estate. That really stuck out. One thing that I think we'll cover in the slides is it said wages are increasing faster than inflation, which is kind of refreshing and a good message to give to our clients. That there is like, it's not super scary out there actually. Like things are looking pretty optimistic. And then the other statistic that kind of stuck out was millennials are the largest generation of boomers. And in the next 5 to 10 years, millennials will show up in the real estate with a pent up demand. So like another thing to have kind of in our focus, what those millennials are built.
There's a thing with the millennials too that especially like the younger half of the millennial generation, there's like it's massively disproportionate the lack of real estate that group owns too. Just because of the conditions and what they grew up with, they saw their parents or people they know have struggles in real estate from 2005 to 2010 or whatever. There was just a lot of like kind of real estate related trauma. So
I remember buying that house and, my dad gave us a significant chunk of money put down. And, he said, just know housing market doesn't always go up. And I'm like, whatever. And then it hit like 4 years later.
right.
But if you ride the storm, right, and we'll see this, it will. Right? So.
A couple quick things. I love the format at Mega Camp. It's great to get like a high level overview from Gary and Jay and the other guy's name, Mark King.
Or Jason Abrams.
Jason Abrams. Yeah, there you go.
Even like
Yeah, right. Ruben is like the big numbers guy and he puts it all together. Like, yeah. I like the format where they give the high level overview and then they immediately transition over to bringing up agents on stage, and each of those agents on stage is like they're just completely killing it on some level in their business. And whatever tool they're using, if it's door knocking or parties or
And they're different from each other. Like
completely
one,
different.
they could do this. I don't even talk about doing that. Like
Yeah.
there was even two people on the same panel that said something like, who would do that, right? I like put down leads, and then the next person was all about how they use leads too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's always so interesting to me to just hear that there's people totally hammering at it and doing it very differently. It's always kind of an eye opener. A lead is 300% more likely to transact with if you meet with them within 48 hours of your initial contact. Right? So when you set the appointment for next week or whatever, that should be something that's playing in your mind, like that the immediacy of it, especially in today's world where, I can buy something and have it delivered later that day. That's the consumer's expectation. And if we're operating differently as agents, then, we're not really meeting that client's expectation, or what maybe could be their expectation.
Can you say that one more time? That client is,
Yeah,
lead
a
is,
lead is 300% more likely to transact if you meet with them within 48 hours of your initial contact. Yeah. Lydia, can you, so I don't have anything to say on that. Anything about GDP, so.
But we go back to it though, right?
Well, sure, if anybody wants to talk about it.
So this just is what the whole thing on the slides is what's happening in North America, and specifically until you get to a couple of these are the United States. So you can see that back in 2020, growth of best product went way down. then we started getting a response to it in 2021, and now we're starting to see again, it's not super high, it's kind of low, but it shows what we're sending out versus what we're bringing in and the changeover time.
Is this like everybody had job issues initially, all of a sudden money went away, and then all of a sudden we gave out a whole ton of money?
Yeah, that and the spot that it shut down, like really things you couldn't ship out, you couldn't push that.
Yeah.
And then we had a quick response to that in that 2021.
I saw that in another slide. I saw the effect of COVID somewhere. Next. Recession probability. This looks, what does that say? That looks to me like we're pretty much,
I think he talked about more about that.
Let's go into
Yeah, but you could probably fix this. He talked more about like the rolling recession or the probability of it, right? That, it might, because of recession in a row.
Of negative gross domestic product, right? And what happens on this, one of the things that they were saying is traditionally, you could see things in a recession that it kind of hit all of our economy at the same spot. Like everything kind of slowed down. You also saw unemployment go down, which we're not seeing. There's next slide that we're not seeing as well. And instead, what we're seeing is there are different items that really inflated that we're now starting to see come back down. Used cars are starting to come back down. However, other pieces are going up. And one of the things that that's the next slide I want to say. But so things are kind of rolling. It's a different type of recession. We might stay out of a complete recession. And one of the reasons he would argue is because we're at unemployment of 3.3%. Anything below 6% is like good. If you say everyone's working, that number really is like 3%. We'll never really get below 3% because we just won't. And the struggle is, as we put this, to go back to what Angie has said, as unemployments are so low, what happens is one of the things that starts to inflate is how much we have to pay for labor, right? I just saw something on the news yesterday. The average first career, what people are expecting for that coming out of college is $78,000 for your first career. That's high. That's higher than it's ever been. And so that's kind of this unique spot that we're in. Even when you hear politics, one side is saying we're going towards a recession, others are going, we're not hitting recessions. You've seen that's what's happening here. Depends where industry you're in, where things are there.
And one thing he said was anything that's driven by the cost of having a recession.
job openings,
So this is showing you, hey, there are 9.5 million jobs available, and there are only 5.9 million people unemployed. So there's a gap there, and that gap is then going to inflate what it needs to cost, the cost of labor. We need to pay more people so they come and select us instead of somewhere else.
and that means the price of goods goes up, then to cover the cost of.
Exactly.
All right. Annual inflation. It's like, you got here, Cal. Communication, maybe.
Take it away, guys.
Kind of
So this includes this yellow line here talks about inflation at 6.4%. That includes things like our the fuels, the things that we need the energy portion. If you remove that energy and food, that includes food as well, then you can see that it's actually this spot. You can think about where your gas prices are. You can think about what you go and buy a box of cereal for. All those we saw huge with COVID. Those shot right up. And we're starting to see that they're coming down. Projected towards the end of the year, and this is again as rates have kind of come up and different things are getting more expensive. People are starting to say, whoa, we might be seeing that in the housing market a little bit as well as whoa. They're expecting inflation around 2.5 to 2.3. If it gets much higher than that, we'll probably see the Fed increase that rate again. However, they might not need to because the target is right around 2%. You can see kind of where that's been there. 2008 came and inflation went way down. This would show a recession at that spot and kind of back up there. It's a weird spot when we're inflating and receding at the same time. And the Fed's job is to create a spot where it's like this without going way back into that spot. But if we all can't afford a box of cereal because it's now $7 and it used to be $3.50, that makes it a challenge.
Excellent. Inflation, Google searches over time, we saw a very large increase during the pandemic. Looks like coming out of the pandemic. Looks like it pretty much quadrupled.
Yeah, think about everything we heard, right, during that time is if you turn on the news, everything was about inflation. Things were going to go high. Interest rates are going high. Things are getting more expensive. What this is a sign of is that starting to cool off, and maybe there's not as much anxiety around that. So this is just how often were people Googling inflation in their search.
I started to connect with this when I was looking through it because I looked at this as like goods and services where prices are falling, health insurance, public transportation, car and truck rental, electronics, those types of things have the falling prices. If you go to the next slide, we see fastest rising prices, vehicle insurance, leased cars and trucks, I don't get it. Pets, pet services, medical equipment, rent of shelter, fastest rising at almost 8%. Being like a differentiation point between the two, like there's a separation of, at least in my mind, between the two. So, real estate industry, maybe I spent a little bit more time in this area. We are at the lowest number of volume since 2011, and up from the peak at 6.1 in 2021. The next slide, I think that's the one where we've seen the prices come back up. In 2006, we were 21% above trend, projected to be 7% above trend for 2023. And I think that's the number that I look at most often and have been looking at. Well, like this year I was thinking, well, we can expect prices to continue rising and we're at a healthy rate, even though when prices were like at 400-ish or something like that for your average single family home, and then all of a sudden now they're more like 500,000-ish. That 400 where we were, while it might have seemed like a lot to us, it was really proportionate with where the market should be.
I think the caution on this slide is, if you were selling real estate down this spot, I think the slide is going, look, I understand that we just came out of something. You might be concerned that homes are not appreciating that spot because they were appreciating less than that 7% trend line. As 4%. We move, what's that?
Is it 4%?
No, 7%. Oh, yeah, sorry, 4%, sorry. 4% year over year, yeah. You can see here in 2007, which is, if you were here, you probably remember that experience pretty well, that there were a couple years where it started to get above that and then it reacted, right? The same way kind of here is a potential possibility if we're just looking historically is, hey, we're getting now above, we were 21% above there, we're now 7% above that trend line. To expect that increase to continue for a long while might not be the most accurate or picture of what could be out there. I think one of the things that could happen right now if you're advising your clients would be to say something like, historically, we've been on a 4% trend. There are times that it's gone down. If you stay in your home longer, it might, typically everything works out, but, we can't guarantee that's going to continue forever, right? Because we're above that trend line.
Especially if, like, and I'll use Kevin as an example, if you bought your home in 2004, that means that you need to stay for 10 years in order
Get
to
back.
get back to the same number that you
Yeah.
purchased at, right?
Yeah.
Because not only are you, and that's even just to get to the same number, not to mention be back above the actual line too. So, I mean, there was a significant amount of difference that needed to be made up. And I owned a house then too, and I was really upside down in that too, so.
Let's go back to that one. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, on that one, I would say too, right now, what do we do right now to get business? Right now, it's pretty, it's pretty easy to talk to our clients about the fact that house prices are rising, 7% above the trend. And it is our responsibility to try to get this to shift down a little bit, because right now there still remains a supply issue. If we're not talking to our sellers and saying, hey, now the prices are still higher, it's highly probable that based on history and what we're looking at with the numbers, that in a couple of years, these prices, your house value is gonna go down. So now is in fact a really good time to sell. The more people we can convince to sell now, the better chance that we can end up getting closer to a balanced or a market.
Can I ask you a question on that one? So 7% above trend line is not actually that significant, especially when we're still dealing with supply and demand issues like we are. Which we didn't have as much back there, like we're still
The only
profoundly
The
lacking.
only challenge with that, Wendy, is it's above there, it's above there, it's above there. It's not like we just went above 7% now. So
And I guess what I've been hearing, and I like your feedback based on what you heard at Mega Camp, was we're 7%, which is not huge, and we aren't gonna see a major under the line like we saw before, but probably stabilizing until the line catches up with it. More of that kind of thing, given supply and demand issues. So I'd like to hear what you heard there on that.
I think that gets, played out in the coming slides a little bit. And if we haven't covered it by the time we get to it, bring it up.
can we go back just one,
Sure.
so I just point this out a little bit? One of the things that I think is interesting in this slide is if you look at this number down here, we have more realtors in the industry than we've had, like that number continues to grow. And this number, is shrinking, right? It shrunk from here, it's been shrinking and shrinking. This spot, one of the things we're gonna see is home price can navigate some different things and raise different things. But most of us in our industry are selling less real estate right now, which could make things challenging. And my only thing on that would be, this would be the time to put our energy into scheduling listings, because that's where we can control this more than the buy side. If we continue to rep buyers and we're bringing 4 buyers for every 1 listing, that's not great odds. If we're bringing 1 listing for every 4 buyers, that's a much better spot to be. So if you're putting energy in anything right now, it really should be going to get our listing.
We are at the highest inventory we've been since November of last year right now. And we've been trending as more inventory available than was available in 2022. I don't think that it feels like we have a lot of inventory, but it does feel like inventory is different than it was last year.
And nationally, right, he said from the stage, hey, home prices are going down.
Yeah. I read an article recently about that too, that Minnesota has been like an anomaly compared to the national market, right?
Well, that does beg the question, people in the room, are you seeing price reductions in the past 2 to 4 months? More so than you saw before?
New home starts are up from where they were before. Looks like a little bit lower than 21 and 22. Next.
What's the yellow line? Like
Historical average,
A 50-year average?
yes.
72.
Yeah, that's a 50-year average, and then the green line is the 30-year average. And this was particularly interesting with, housing affordability. If you go back through into 2012, it was 17% of a household income being put toward housing. As early as the beginning of the pandemic, it was 18%. And really, I think that went through the pandemic. I mean, it went through 6 months to, I don't know, maybe it was up to a year that we still had those low interest rates in the pandemic. And now it's up to 29%, which I think I would argue that that's probably a healthier place for us to be. Maybe not quite that high, but it can't be 17, 18% because then everybody just buys stuff and there's a shortage of RVs because everybody's buying an RV, you know, for 80, 100 grand or whatever.
The only challenge I have with this slide is if you stop here, right, we talk about how crazy things were in the early 80s. If we stop here and we think about what's the average age of the clients that we're working at and that are transacting homes, many of them, let's go to 1990, many of them are used to this being paid and this being paid as part of their parents. Like our parents would have been, you know, bought a house or sold a house last at this spot. So they're used to being at 20, 21, 18, and all of a sudden we're getting up to 30 or 32 for that short moment there. That can be an issue for them as well, right? We got to think about who's our clients and what is their understanding. I walked in and go, my house will never go down in value. Well, I don't have that same perspective now that I lived through 2008.
I'm wondering if there's also, if this could potentially be skewed by the idea that people are spending more of their income on a house post-COVID. Because housing became housing and you're, you know, getting acreage and getting pools and, you know, having more of an estate became a lot more significant to people through COVID. And they might be spending more money on the house because now we're post-COVID, we can be back together with family and stuff, right? And that might be throwing it off just a little bit. But 27% being the average.
Because that jump isn't when interest rates jumped up. You know what I mean? That is
Right.
Right.
How about that? Almost 90% of mortgages have rates of 5% or less. Isn't that crazy? A full third are 3% or less. I was blown away by that. The next slide I think is, this has to do with the period of time where we added 550,000 agents, sides dropped from 13.5 to 7.5. And when I got into real estate back here, I don't even think that I was really experiencing a lot of that. I was just trying to survive. And then after the crash, I know it was about survival at that point. And it was very apparent for me that there were just less agents in the business and there was more deal opportunity. Whereas right now, we know that there's a heck of a lot of agents out there and there's a lot of agents that are just doing a couple transactions a year. And that absolutely takes sides away from all of us. So just an observation. Market. Next.
Is anybody marketing Kevin was just giving me this information, marketing their listings that their clients have FHA loans as assumable loans right now?
Tell me more about that.
Well, apparently the remaining balance of an FHA loan is an FHA loan at 4%. Not all of them?
Yeah, it depends on your lender and.
Okay.
But
Some of them are.
A lot of them.
So if you're about to see the listing,
Assumable, what are we saying?
means that if let's just say I got an FHA loan,
At
10 years
3%.
at 3% 3 years ago, right? And you want to pay this, okay, for 400,000, I got 350,000 left on the mortgage. You need to get a new mortgage at 380,000. You can assume my 350 at that 3% and get a second mortgage for whatever the rates are now, 11 or whatever they are, at 7% today for the remaining balance. Which, if you are listing the homes, that is a massive advantage over anybody else who is selling their house, and every single buyer is coming in at today's rates.
VA is
Yeah,
also,
VA
yeah.
it does take more
Can't do it
time.
Conventional?
No. It does take more time and, it's nice if you can have that conversation with their current lender before you list the house.
Great.
Conventional buyer can assume a VA loan. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Correct.
You just
Yeah.
can't assume it's gotta be.
It doesn't have to be VA to VA, it's a conventional buyer.
Oh, I don't think that's, I understood it as you need to have the,
You have to
VA
qualify for the
Oh, does-
VA eligibility.
eligibility.
That's what I'm.
It can be conventional.
No, maybe we can get somebody to help us out with that info, that would be valuable. How about 39%? 34 million homeowners own their homes free and clear. 61% have mortgages, right? 31% with less than, or with greater than 50% equity. I was blown away that there were that many paid off houses out there. I mean, that
So
seems.
70% at 50% equity, between 50 or 100% equity.
Right.
I think doesn't make sense. If there's truly an average, that the average population moves every 7 years, it doesn't equate like that.
And I think that number, by the way, that's 7 years, is getting longer and longer and longer. That's why I said 7 to 10 years. Historically, it was 7 and it's getting longer on that spot. But I think one of the things that is interesting, if we go back and if we were, doing listings in the, during COVID the last couple of years, think about, one of the questions I asked the other time, do you have any other cash offers? Right? We just saw an increase in the number of cash offers or 70% down or minimum 50% down, no appraisal is gonna be needed. I think this reflects something, or that started to bring attention to this spot of going, hey, if they're moving up or moving, they might have the resources just to go with cash offer when they sell their other one, you know?
And it may also reflect corporate versus corporation, because when you read the stats that the average person only has 40,000 saved up for retirement, I mean, you just start talking about every other stat. Don't tell me that everyone owns their house at $600,000 if they only have 40 or 30 in their pocket for retirement. It doesn't.
But if that's the average person, and we know that, home ownership is like 40, 50%, I don't, so, don't fact check me. But if you take, like, if you take out all the renters and those people that don't have that ability or whatever, then you get to the actual people that own the homes. And surely there's, that's a big number, 70%.
Which just says we should be having home equity conversations.
So, right.
They probably aren't.
Maybe they don't even need to sell their house. Maybe they could, like pull an equity line or something like that to purchase their next property. Have the numbers work for them. I thought this was really, really interesting, this dream car versus dream home scenario. So the deal was you bought a home, a $200,000 home in 2014, and you own a truck that you bought in 2015. Your mortgage payment is $1,500 and your truck is paid off. Keep living in your current home and buy your dream car, $100,000 2022 Jeep Grand Wagoneer, $90,000 financed at 8% for 5 years, brings your car payment to $1,800. Your mortgage payment is $1,500. You get your little interest deduction, and that's your total debt of $3,300. And that's if you stay in your first home or whatever the budget home is and buy your dream car, versus the next slide is dream car versus the dream home. Change. Keep your truck, sell your home that's now worth $400,000 and buy your dream home at $650,000. You don't have that car payment. Your mortgage payment is $3,800. You've got the interest deduction, your total debt. So you can live in that $650,000 home if you're not driving the $100,000 new vehicle. I want to say the next slide is the next step. And that is, you keep living in your current home and buy your dream car.
$400,000 home now instead of a two.
Thank you. 20% down, 4% rate. The total cost is $4,800 a month.
So did you write down, is it on the next slide?
The one time.
No, wait, he
Yeah,
said,
that is, the next slide is the 1.1 million now.
yeah. But remember when he said there, it's that right there. This one on the bottom. For every $50,000 in car debt at today's rates, you're actually losing $200,000 in home purchasing power.
That's crazy.
Interesting.
Isn't that nuts?
They were really knocking, you know, the new car purchase versus the home, yeah. Purchase. I'm gonna go home and sell my car.
Gary was funny too, because he went back, he said something, and I think it was in the Blue Book. He said, big hat, no cattle. In the Texas world, that means that you've got like the pomp and circumstance, but you don't have any backing, right? And he said that while the attraction is high for people to be spending a lot of money on ancillary things, if you're really strategically thinking about it, buying as much house as you can afford and using that as your tool, it's such a better place just to put your money.
I think that's where you've really helped the market center in our thinking, Derek. It's just the idea that many of us have garages full of stuff, and it hurts our value of us in that at all. And the idea that property can help with our net worth is significant.
Well, just think about it. So the average appreciation rate over history of a house is 4%. The average depreciation rate of a vehicle, probably about the same. Yeah. So, I mean, that alone is just such a simple concept, you know, and so just be careful.
You know what's kind of funny? If you look at Realtor, like Facebook groups and everything, one of the things that we see all the time is, what kind of car do you drive? I'm just getting into real estate, thinking of getting a new kind of car. What kind of car do you drive?
What's the best real estate car?
One you can afford.
One you can afford.
Right? Go to the next slide. That was it. Where are we at on time?
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Perfect. Is there anything else that you guys think we should talk about from Mega Camp?
One thing that struck me, so I, with the breakout groups, you know, or the panels, right? I kept seeing one reoccurring theme of them because the agents were so different. It's like, oh, I really like to do this. I run my, but it really made me think, you know, a lot of the ones they did, they're like, oh, I really like to do this. And so this thing that I do, whether it's like, I like to host parties, I like to bring people together for this event, or I like to have my free time, so I door knock for 4 hours a day or whatever that is. But doing the action that they enjoy doing, then funnel their business rather than figuring out, you know, how do I funnel my business so I can do the thing that I want to do? They somehow figured out like, how do I do the thing I want to do? And then have that funnel by my business. And I thought that was like a shift kind of in my brain. And all of them had figured out that thing that they were doing that then funneled their business rather than the other way around.
Rama, that was kind of like what you were talking with Deserves about the week during Mega Camp. Or, yeah, that's where we were at. Yeah, that was just, you weren't, that's exactly what Deserves were saying when they were up here speaking, was talking about how they enjoy these events, that they love doing these events, they love being around all these people, and they have made their real estate career into bringing it into those events.
You know, that goes back to Jason Abrams had the thing in Maple Grove, I think it was.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2-3 years ago, where he talked about using your life as your way to get business, right? finding a way for it to dovetail together.
And there's another piece though, that's important, that it's my opinion, after all these years, that 50% of what you should do is what you do really well already. So if you are great at networking, you're great at speaking with people, if you're great at having coffee with some older folks, because you're gonna take the time with them, that should be 50% of your business. The other 50% is what you like to do the least. Because that's what's gonna challenge you to grow and be better at the things that you're not good at. So then you're becoming a lot more than just a really, really good networking realtor. That makes sense? So challenge yourself in both areas.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, the contrast in homes, home values sold. There was an agent from San Diego who is like 75. He works, I think it was 120, it might be 135 days a year, and sells like 30 to 40 homes, and it's a total dollar. Basically, he nets about like 1.2 a year or something like that, because his average sale price is like $1.5 million or something like that. As opposed to the agent from Southern Indiana, this woman, I don't know how she does it. I think it was 375 units as a solo agent with a virtual assistant at $100,000 average unit price.
Her goal was to double her sale price because it was $100,000.
I mean, how hard? Like, there isn't enough hours in my life to sell that many houses. I mean, shame me for being close-minded, but that is an insane, and it's a predominantly pretty rural area too. So 370, like if you think about Minnesota, like 375 units a year in like Owatonna, I mean, you have to have signs on every street, like literally throughout the entire place. Yeah, it's interesting seeing it, and she seemed very happy with the amount that she was working too. Everybody's got their own path, right? Yeah, perfect.
What was it, Bill Jones? Okay, so he really focused on like asking questions and like coming from a place of curiosity with your clients to help like build that relationship. And that seemed like such common sense, but to hear him say it, I was like, well, why am I not doing that?
Give us an example.
So, how are you, Rick?
Pretty good.
Good. And you know, I saw you come in a little later today, a little more casual. Were you just, something fun? Were you out on the lake or?
No, I just don't have any appointments with clients today.
Oh.
It's so hot out.
Oh, yeah.
I decided to be casual.
Yes. Oh, okay. So you're taking some time for yourself today?
Yeah, pretty good.
Oh, and you know, do you have plans? Like, are you staying casual?
Yeah, I'm staying casual.
Okay, yeah.
No, I haven't. So that'd be nice to be casual today. Why do you ask? You seem so curious.
Really going deeper, and he said like a lot of it, we try to be like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm doing that too. Well, it is not about us. Like, it is about Rick.
Doesn't take long to make a connection.
Right? Glad you brought that up. I had forgotten about that part of that. One of the things that I wrote down was, he talked about, some of the stuff like from Diana with Bold, like how you're asking questions and the words you use actually matter. And I wrote down, the way to phrase a question of somebody you're asking for maybe a commitment on something, or if you're offering them something, starting by saying, I'm not sure if it's for you. I have this opportunity that you might consider. And it's taking them out of a position of thinking solely about the actual decision, but then they're also taking into consideration like, well, why doesn't Derek think this is for me? And he said, I think his point on that was that you're likely to get different results, or there might be a sense that the people are more strongly considering what you're saying because you're starting out by kind of taking it away from them. Thought that was-
I also really like that he, instead of saying, who else do you know that might be looking to buy or sell? Like, who else do you know that might be looking for space? Who else do you know that might be looking for a place with a pool? So he was like really specific around those kind of questions, which I thought was kind of neat. He does have a book, it's his book, Exactly What to Say, is on Audible, and he does read it, I guess. He has a very nice English accent, and it's only like 2 hours long, so a quick little listen.
I also wrote down the other called like start of a question as how open-minded are you to the question?
I'm not open-minded at all.
Right? No client who would say that, right? Like, no, I'm not. Yeah. Your observation?
Henry, Line texted me and asked, did they say anything about what the expectations are for prices next spring? Are they going down? Is the expectation that because they're above the trend line, they'll be going down, or just not?
I think the acknowledgement was they are going down, right? That's what that whole slide was showing is that home prices are starting to come back.
However,
That's national.
if the interest rates do start to slide back down before spring, which a lot of the financial industry speakers are saying the same thing, that because of the conditions, and rolling inflation, that the interest rates will be going down. If they do go down and we have the same supply and demand that we have right now, the only thing that can happen is for prices to go up because of that. So it's just worth paying attention to, being very keenly aware.
Right.
And if next year's like this year, spring is in February, because remember what happened in February? All of a sudden, everybody wanted to buy a house early. So it's worth being careful about.
And I think this is where, as listing agents, you can help kind of do that whole spot where we don't need to see as many price decreases because we can talk about, hey, when we list your home, what we're trying to do is find out that market, we want to come at or slightly below that, right? The more and more there are price reductions, as soon as a news organization gets a hold of that or something, the world's falling apart. And the challenge is we as real estate agents keep raising that. Well, this one sold this, we're gonna raise it 5% above that. We're gonna, and maybe that's not what we should do. We can look at instead and go, okay, here's the comparable. Let's list, right? You can't underprice a house. Let's list slightly below that instead of above that. Let's understand that, yeah, the market is, something's going in the market. But when we do all these price decreases, it doesn't help our clients in any way. So if we're listing homes, let's list them at where we think market value is and maybe just slightly below that.
And that's very important. The language that we were using 6 months ago, I'll say precisely what I said to every single person I listed their house. We're gonna list it on Monday, coming soon. On Friday, it's gonna be available. We should have between 10 and 20 showings. By Saturday, we should have between 5 and 10 offers, and it will get sold on Saturday. So let's talk about what that's gonna look like. So that was the conversation consistently for months, because that's what was happening. We have to be very careful not to do that now, right? Now, if this will list your house, as Kevin is suggesting, because that makes sense, relatively conservatively, or a little tiny bit conservatively. And then what we don't know is how the buyers are gonna respond, because the market's a little different now than it was before. And that's it, because you don't wanna set those expectations. You might have one showing. It might take 2 weeks. Imagine it taking 2 weeks to sell a house.
And I think you could say the same thing right now, but the price is different, right? Like in order to get that type
If you
of,
want that.
like, right? But maybe instead of listing it at 400 and it sells at 425, like the price to sell it in a week and multiple offers to find out what somebody really is willing to pay, you might have to start at 375 or 350 or something to like get the amount of interest that it's going to take for buyers to just go psycho.
No,
Right. That's true. That's true.
Rick just takes a check with him. He says, if it doesn't sell, he doesn't sell.
Don't cash this till Monday. Right.
Is having conversations when you list a house saying, okay, if we have 10 showings and no offers, or you're 10 days in and no offers, then we're gonna relook at price. Like, how are you handling that ahead of time?
Yeah, see, that we've been a little behind the curve on that, which is, I think, important to acknowledge. So we're responding rather than getting ahead of it. Now, after the last couple of listings, correct me if I'm wrong, but after the last couple of listings where we've had to make a price adjustment to get the property sold, I think we're gonna start having those conversations beginning now, right? Because it's just so uncertain. I mean, we list 3 houses and one sells with 6 offers and the other one gets 1 showing. Like literally that just happened. And we thought they were both gonna get 6 offers, you know, and it's like, ugh, we got this gorgeous house, I got 1 showing. So that's the point where you gotta learn very, very fast, you know, and adjust very fast. That's why we're in a meeting together. That's why we collaborate together. That's why Keller Williams is dynamic and moves all the time because the market's moving like that. So.
Awesome. In respect to time, are there any wants or needs?
Can I share one broker thing?
Nope.
So here's a piece of value for buyers out there and listening to this and all this as well. You can, in coming soon, your client and you cannot go into a coming soon property. However, you can write on a coming soon property and have it contingent upon an inspection. The inspector is not public. The inspector can go do the inspection. Your client cannot enter the house and you cannot enter the house either, but that inspector can go do the inspection. If you have any problem with that, you can send them to my way and I have a person right at the MLS that made sure I wrote her name down for that. So that is true. That's your broker value today. You cannot, and as listing agents, remember, as listing agents, the fine is on you if you let anyone in. But know that the inspector is not public. They can go and do the service of doing the inspection.
And in order to get a listing agent to accept that, you've got to be able to be prepared to tell them, I will not share the inspection results with you. So, because all of a sudden they're in a situation during coming soon where they've got 10 new things that they need to disclose. So be very careful with that too.
Any wants and needs? Thanks, Kevin.
You bet.
Yes.
We have a condo listing in Shoreview, it's 145 Fifth Street, which is awesome. Location is a little strict. There's weird things that aren't making that sell right off the bat. So if anyone looking for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, completely renovated condo in Shoreview.
Restriction.
They can't put in. You can't put in-unit laundry in. Laundry.
Oh,
That's how you meet.
Good car wash.
there you go. Anybody else
You're
wants
closer.
or needs?
You can use multiple. Want an open house, speaking in Minnetonka, open house,
Want to do one?
want to host an open house, Minnetonka. This is 650, right?
Awesome.
If anyone has anyone looking at Maple Lake, that's Buffalo. I have 2 properties there, one on a lake and
Which lake?
550.
What lake?
If it is.
Is it actually?
Maple Lake?
No, it's not a Maple Lake.
Maple
And it's
Lake.
not, it's more like you can put a pontoon on it, but it's only 8 feet. So it's like a experimental lake.
Very cool. Anyone else?
I have up in North Branch. Hi.
Hi.
But up in North Branch, a townhome, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, beautiful, and a 2-car garage, and it's $225.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. I got to thank Kevin. He answered a broker call while he was on vacation for me. And that's super awesome. One clap for Kevin. All right. Thanks for coming today, guys.
Thank you.
Nelson Mountain. Hey.